McGraw-Hill Ascent Audio presents Guts, Greatness Under Tremendous Stress, a Navy SEAL system for turning fear into accomplishment, by Brian Iron Ed Hiner, narrated by Brian Iron Ed Hiner. To my son Jake and my wife Wendy, and to the children of the world and to the veterans, I have seen the horrors of war borne by the most innocent and those who risk their lives for each other. Preface. Now what? I asked myself right after my first book, First Fast and Fearless, became a Los Angeles Times bestseller. Believe it or not, that was the lowest point of my life. I had grown up poor, and by the age of 12, I lived full-time with my grandmother and my brother deep in the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia. My grandmother only had a 7th grade education, but she was tough and she had guts. Growing up in poverty and coming from a broken home is a lonely experience, and it permeates all aspects of life with fear, doubt, and a sense of scarcity. Baseball saved me. My coach, Coach Cutler, took a chance on me, and I made varsity as a freshman in high school. Baseball gave me direction in life. It gave me the first glimpse of a future. I was awarded a Division I baseball college scholarship and was inducted into the Virginia High School Hall of Fame. The thought of graduating from college was overwhelming. I was in uncharted territory, and I was on my own. But as luck would have it, I ran into a Navy SEAL. He told me about a life of adventure, mystery, and danger, about the ultimate team that was also a family. A light went on in me. That was what I was searching for. This was my calling. I hitchhiked from Virginia Beach to Richmond. A day later, I signed up. 20 years, 3 wars, and 9 tours later, in 2012, I retired from the SEAL teams. I was happy. At least I thought I was. A few months after retiring, my dad died suddenly. Although I had a hard childhood, coming from a broken family, my dad and I had since repaired our relationship. No matter the circumstances, he had a special place in my heart. Most boys looked up to their fathers as if they are Superman. I was no different. Although my dad had his flaws, I felt like he was my protector, my anchor. Just knowing he was there gave me a sense of safety, and then he was gone. Less than 6 months later, I lost my brother, the one person I had grown up with, who had known me all my life. He too was gone. In a short period, I had lost my identity as a SEAL, my team, and my family. My friends and teammates were getting killed or wounded, or worse, killing themselves. I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, traumatic brain injury, TBI, and numerous physical injuries. I had lost my why. There's an Ernest Hemingway quote I found myself living. There is no hunting like the hunting of man, and those who have hunted armed men long enough and liked it never really care for anything else thereafter. Having a dangerous profession and serving in combat, that is very unique. When you are done with it, life is very different. It's like deep scuba diving for long periods. The diver doesn't get the bends while he is down. He gets the bends when he comes to the surface. The longer you stay down, the worse it is when you surface. After retiring, I felt like I had bolted to the surface with no real transition, and then it all compounded. Being a SEAL and going into combat is addicting, and like most addictions, it's a love-hate relationship. The taste for it is there, probably for life, even though I know it's bad for me. It numbed me to happiness and joy. It took away my feelings and my connectedness to the best parts of my life and to the people who meant the most to me. There were times I couldn't sleep for 72 hours without medication, and many of the medications didn't work. I was always nervous and in a fearful state of mind. I was full of anger and hatred for my enemies. It was controlling my life and stealing my joy. I felt like I was in a downward spiral. One of the final straws was when I started to hear whispering at night while I was in bed. I would get up and clear the house to ensure there were no intruders. At times I thought I could see movements in the shadows. I knew it was irrational, but I felt like they were coming to get me. Everything around me was crumbling. I had lost my identity, my team, my meaningful mission, and my overall well-being. I had lost so many of my SEAL brothers and 2 of my closest family members. My world was in tatters. What held it together was my single-minded focus on writing my first book, First, Fast, Fearless. I had always been motivated by a meaningful mission. So after I had accomplished my goal, after the book was published and became a bestseller, it all came crashing down. I was racked by fear and self-doubt about the future, about what would come next. Warriors don't feel sorry for themselves. They're not victims, yet I started down that path. I knew I had to pick myself up by my bootstraps. I knew I had to start living again. I had to fulfill the promises I had made to myself in war, and now I am. And I did that using the principles and guts, which I now want to share with you. Everything I write about in this book is drawn from my own journey. I hope it will teach you how to turn fear into accomplishment so that you can achieve whatever goals you've set for yourself and lead happier, more successful, more fulfilled lives. Hoo-yah, let's do this. Acknowledgements. Countless people, too many to identify by name, over the years have helped me get to where I am, and I will forever be grateful to each and every one of them. In the interest of brevity, I would like to highlight a select few. To my family, my son, Jake, my wife, Wendy, and my dog and therapist, Rosebud, for once again listening to all my stories and ideas ad nauseum. To Matt Heckelmeyer and Rhett Fisher for always being there to help motivate me to write and being my best friends and brothers. To all my SEAL brothers and my brothers and sisters in the armed services, I love you and I thank you for all you do. To my partners and friends who helped me develop the SEALpreneurship program using GUTS principles that serve underserved children, Charles Parisi, Dave Veccaripone, Gary Denham, and Mike Volmert, thank you for serving. To the San Diego courts and juvenile school system, thank you for allowing me to fulfill a promise to myself, helping the kids at San Pasqual Academy for foster youth. To all the kids at San Pasqual Academy, thank you for allowing us to serve you and inspiring us to be better people. To my extended family, the Driscolls, Heiners, and Borkums, thank you for being in my corner. To my colleague, Peter Sander, once again, thank you for helping bring this project to life. I'm fortunate to have a great publisher, McGraw Hill, with an excellent staff and the best editor in the business, Casey Ebro. Thank you. Lastly, I would like to thank all the listeners and leaders who are willing to pick up this book with an openness to learning how to become a better leader and hopefully a better you. Introduction. The origin of guts, greatness under tremendous stress. When I started my own journey home, after 20 years of service, I reflected on my days as a lead instructor, training people to become U.S. Navy SEALs. A time I will always remember with reverence and awe. Navy SEAL training is known to be one of the toughest and most rigorous military training regiments in the world. At the height of the wars on terror, we received nearly 10,000 applications a year. Of those, we could accept only 1,200 or so to even begin training. Attrition is high, and the most we have ever graduated in a year is 250 SEALs. The odds of getting in and making it through to graduation are low. Our basic underwater demolition SEAL BUDS training is what most people think of when they think of SEAL training. But BUDS is just a portion of the complete basic training a student goes through to become a Navy SEAL. Before students get their coveted Navy SEAL Trident, they must successfully complete more than a year of grueling training that includes 8-week Naval Special Warfare Prep School, 3-week orientation, 21-week basic underwater demolition SEAL BUDS training, including Hell Week, 7-week parachute jump school and survival, evasion, resistance, escape, SEER, 19-week SEAL qualification training, SQT. Upon graduation from SQT, a trainee receives the coveted Navy SEAL Trident, which officially designates him as a Navy SEAL. He receives a Special Warfare Operator Naval Rating, or, in the case of a commissioned naval officer, the designation Navy Special Warfare SEAL Officer. He is then assigned to a SEAL team or a SEAL Delivery Vehicle, SDV team, and begins an 18-month pre-deployment training program consisting of 6-month professional development, ProDev, individual specialty training, 6-month unit level training, ULT, 6-month squadron integration training. In total, this represents 2.5 to 3 years of continuous training until the new SEAL deploys for the first time, and then his journey truly begins. An old wooden plaque inside the training compound reads, "The only easy day was yesterday." This expression sets clear expectations that being a SEAL is never easy. Only yesterday is because it's over. After a 6-month deployment, the 18-month pre-deployment training program starts over, and each time the SEAL conducts pro-dev, he masters a new skill, such as explosive breaching, becoming a sniper, professional driver or interrogator, leadership training, and more. As the SEAL continues to deploy, he develops new skills, but also retrains into fundamental skills. His training and development are never complete. When I look back to training SEALs, my mind always takes me to graduation, the day when students become Navy SEALs and join the brotherhood that we all genuinely love. For the first time, we see the students with their families and loved ones. In a sense, it's a clash of past and present. As students become aware of their own transformation, one that is also recognized by their families. "My son is different now," was a common refrain, especially from the mothers on graduation day. Something had changed, and it was noticeable. It was a moment to celebrate, but it was also a moment of sadness, of missing the son who used to be. It wasn't a physical transformation, but something else. The mothers would tell me that their son's presence had changed, that he now walked, talked, and carried himself differently, and that he addressed the world around him differently. It wasn't arrogance or cockiness. He had developed a different relationship with life and his place in it. From my perspective, he had developed guts, greatness under tremendous stress, a systematic approach to accomplishment that enables him to become an alpha in his professional and personal world. This book is not about helping you become a SEAL, although if that's your intent, it certainly won't hurt. It's about helping you develop guts, so you can take an alpha approach to everything you do in life. What do I mean by alpha? In the animal world, many species travel in packs, led by an alpha male or female. The other animals in the pack always sense and know who the alpha is, just as the families can see and sense the change in their loved ones at graduation. From this interaction, he can see and feel this transformation himself, and he has what I call the alpha swagger, a focused and authentic state of mind and a sense of being fully present, living life on his own terms with intent. This swagger isn't necessarily permanent. I felt I had lost some of it when I came home from my 20-year career. Guts and the accomplishment gap. When I started to develop the guts concept, I dissected my life, studied what had worked in the past, and identified what had made me successful, happy, fulfilled, and thrive in such a dangerous and challenging profession. All of us have to deal with fear and stress, and must manufacture the motivation to get ourselves past it. Guts serves as a bridge to help you cross the accomplishment gaps in your life. An accomplishment gap is simply a gap between who or what you are and who or what you think you should be or want to be. A state of the American workplace Gallup poll shows that 70% of employees are either passively or actively disengaged with their work. Apathy is prevalent. People aren't motivated and thus waste their lives. These gaps pop up in our personal lives too. Now, I don't recommend that everyone become a SEAL. It surely is not for everyone. What I do recommend is that you borrow the guts page from the SEAL playbook and use guts and the alpha approach to deal with the accomplishment gaps in your professional and personal lives. Deal with fear, become a warrior, get it done, and learn from your success. A Message to Garcia. Published in 1899 by Albert Hubbard, the essay A Message to Garcia continues to be taught to this day at the United States Naval Academy in Annapolis, West Point, and virtually all officer training programs in all branches of service. It tells a story that took place during the Spanish-American War of 1898. When the United States declared war against Spain due to the Spanish interference in Cuba, the war was triggered by the sinking of the American battleship, the USS Maine. After the sinking of the Maine, President William McKinley needed to make contact with the senior Cuban insurgency leader, General Calixto Garcia, as Hubbard wrote. In all this Cuban business, there is one man stands out on the horizon of my memory like Mars at perihelion. When war broke out between Spain and the United States, it was very necessary to communicate quickly with the leader of the insurgents. Garcia was somewhere in the mountain fastnesses, secluded places of Cuba. No one knew where. No mail or telegraph could reach him. The president must secure his cooperation, and quickly. What to do? Someone said to the president, "There's a fellow by the name of Rowan. We'll find Garcia for you, if anybody can." Rowan was sent for and given a letter to be delivered to Garcia. However, the fellow by the name of Rowan took the letter, sealed it up in an oilskin pouch, strapped it over his heart, and 4 days landed by night off the coast of Cuba from an open boat, disappearing into the jungle, and in 3 weeks came out on the other side of the island, having traversed a hostile country on foot and having delivered his letter to Garcia. Are things I have no special desire now to tell in detail. The point I wish to make is this. McKinley gave Rowan a letter to be delivered to Garcia. Rowan took the letter and did not ask, "Where is he at?" By the eternal, there is a man whose form should be cast in deathless bronze and the statue placed in every college in the land. It is not book learning young men need, nor instruction about this or that, but a stiffening of the vertebrae, which will cause them to be loyal to a trust, to act promptly, concentrate their energies, do the thing, carry a message to Garcia. First Lieutenant Andrew S. Rowan, a junior Army officer, was entrusted this mission by his commanding officer directly from the president. He was given no guidance, no instructions. He was on his own. Rowan knew it and accepted it. He left by ship at night and landed soon after in Jamaica, where he met up with the head of the Cuban junta. A carriage drove up to him, and someone in Spanish said, "It is time." Rowan was smuggled in a wagon across Jamaica and then transferred onto a small boat loaded with weapons to the island of Cuba. He cut through jungles and escaped and evaded the Spanish. He rode horses for days and was smuggled by unknown men he had never met and had no way of vetting. He encountered countless trials and tribulations, but he never stopped pressing forward. In the worst of times, he was at his best and delivered the message to Garcia. He then carried a message back to the United States to help coordinate the war plans, and his actions proved critical to the war's success. 100 years ago, Rowan was a household name. A Senate bill was drafted that called for a statue to commemorate his bravery and perseverance, and he received the Army's second highest award, the Distinguished Service Cross. Rowan's effort is timeless. That's why it's still taught today. His capacity for independent action, initiative, courage, and problem-solving, and his ability to perform during times of uncertainty and duress are legendary and something to aspire to. Rowan had guts. Blue-collar scholar, the science of doing. SEALs know that we will face difficulty, that we will be challenged in ways that we cannot predict, but that we must be prepared mentally and physically to carry the message. Before we can lead others, we must learn to lead ourselves. Beyond the distinct traits of physical and moral courage, a SEAL must learn how to become an expert at being an expert quickly. SEALs learn to be what I call blue-collar scholars. The perfect blue-collar scholar is a highly adaptable handyman with expertise in philosophy, science, psychology, and art, with the spirit and curiosity of a pioneer and entrepreneur. Like Rowan, he is ultimately a practical doer. Knowledge is power, but doing empowers. The blue-collar scholar is not after perfection. His focus is on the 80% solution, so that he can start taking action now. This approach includes a personal growth mindset and an openness to learn and evolve. Sticks. A blue-collar scholar becomes the expert at being an expert by using a simple system I call STICKS. Situation. Toss aside beliefs. Immersion. Conscious, competent learner. Kick out what's not useful. State of mind. You must see your current situation clearly and be able to toss aside beliefs in order to grow and change. To become great, you must immerse yourself in what you do. Learn as if you are preparing to teach, and kick out what you can't or don't need to use. Finally, you must be in the right state of mind to evolve. Discovery consists of seeing what everybody has seen and thinking what nobody has thought. Albert von Szent-Györgyi Nagelpolt. Asymmetrical thinking. Part of the blue-collar scholar approach includes asymmetrical or out-of-the-box thinking. SEALs plan and train hard so that we are on a mission. We have a sense of déjà vu, a feeling that we've been there before, so it's not as scary. But while we plan and prepare, we want to tap into a sense of vujade, of seeing something we've seen countless times before with fresh eyes, as if we're seeing it for the first time, so that we're seeing asymmetrically. Let's get after it. Chapter 1. They wear dresses, but they don't dance. Understanding fear, our greatest adversary. Bonnie Ware, a palliative care nurse who cared for the terminally ill, wrote The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. In the book, she revealed the 5 most common regrets her patients shared with her on their deathbeds. The number 1 regret? They wished they had dared to live lives that they were true to themselves, not the lives others expected of them. I don't know about you, but I don't want to live a life of regret. I want to live the life that I design, and I most certainly don't want to let my fears get in the way of that. There's an old adage that says, courage is the first of human virtues because it makes all others possible. But before we can be courageous and before we can begin to accomplish all those other things, we must first better understand and learn to manage fear. Fear shapes the outcome of our lives and is both a gift and a disease. I chose a hazardous profession as a U.S. Navy SEAL. Hell, in some sense, I spent 20 years on my deathbed. Fear keeps us alive when we're being chased by a lion. But in daily life, especially in our work life, a fearful state of mind cripples us. Most experts agree that we are born with only 2 fears, a fear of falling and a fear of loud noises. The rest is learned. As we grow up, we receive little training on how to deal with fear, beyond a few cliches telling us to face our fears and overcome them. But what does that really mean? Fear keeps us alive if we're being chased by a lion, but in daily life, especially our work life, fear cripples us. If you can manufacture courage, motivation, and willpower, all the cliches in the world won't help you raise your hand at a board meeting or get off the couch to work out. At least not for more than 90% of humans. We all have finite willpower. Oh, don't be late for the dance. For a 2003 exchange program, I was selected as a SEAL officer to become a member of the British Special Forces. At this time, we were in 2 major wars, and the British were our most active coalition force. So the strength of our relationship was critical, and still is today. The Special Air Service, SAS, and the Special Boat Service, SBS, produce among the toughest and bravest warriors the world has seen. They conduct covert, clandestine, and direct action missions around the globe. Some say they are fearless, but are they? I had only been in England for a few months. I was still getting my bearings and learning the nuances of the culture. One afternoon, I was told that the squadron I was in was having a boys' night out, or a fancy dress, as they call it. I decided to wear a button-up shirt and classic jacket, which I thought was a safe bet. I arrived at the pub a little early, but not long after, several of the lads rolled in and walked over to me at the bar. At first, I didn't recognize them. They were all wearing dresses. I was staring at some of the world's toughest men who had done some of the most dangerous covert and direct action missions. Not only were they wearing dresses, they had also accessorized with makeup, wigs, and hell, I believe even shaved their legs. They looked at me a little strangely and snickered as they realized I hadn't understood the meaning of the fancy dress night. Not too many pints into the evening, we went to a small club. I asked the lads why they were just keeping to themselves at the bar and weren't mingling. The Scotsman, who had invited me, replied, "Brits don't dance, mate. You won't catch a British man dead on the dance floor. That's for you Yanks." I was a little confused, but I realized it was because they were embarrassed. I pressed them. "So you wear dresses, but you don't dance." "That's right, mate. We don't dance." In their minds, wearing dresses was so absurd it was a way to make fun of themselves and have a good laugh. But dancing, which exposes you and makes you a little vulnerable, well, that was a bridge too far. To fear is human. Fear has many faces. There are different types of fears, and we all have various levels of immunity to each type. For U.S. Navy SEALs and others in similar professions, physical fear often comes more naturally than others, such as social, moral, and emotional fears. Often what we think we fear is not what we really fear, as in the case with public speaking. People often say they feel as if they're going to die before speaking. But what they really fear isn't the speaking itself or even the fear of being embarrassed. Rather, it is the fear of feeling incompetent, which could lead to the loss of a job, home, or social standing. In addition to the embarrassment, fear is complicated. We know that fear is an unpleasant emotion caused by the belief that something is likely to be dangerous and cause pain. Note that fear is a belief, and like any other belief, we can change it. We just need proof, evidence, to show us why this belief is no longer valid. Fear is a physical event experienced, not only in the mind, but in the body, and it naturally produces a freeze, fight, or flight response. Fear is the primary emotion that ensures our survival. It's our survival instinct. It triggers what most people refer to as the reptile part of our brain, which happens to be the oldest part. Hundreds of thousands of years ago, humans had predators that preyed on them, and they feared for their personal safety on a daily basis. Our brains are still wired to that level of fear, and our minds naturally look out for danger in our lives. According to researchers, roughly 80% of our daily thoughts are negative and fear-based. Most of those negative thoughts are repetitive, like a movie playing in a loop in our minds. Psychologists use the term awfulizing, which means in a situation of uncertainty, the mind is filled with fear of the worst. Fear replaces the unknown with the awful. When your mind awfulizes, fear replaces the unknown with the awful. Just turn on the news and watch and listen for fear. It's as if humans are obsessed with potential dangers, often overreacting to a perceived threat without rational justification. I believe the 24-hour news cycle has not only created a fearful state of consciousness throughout the United States, it is contributing to national health issues such as depression and anxiety. A horrific event gets played over and over until our minds believe it happens continuously, producing a sense of inevitable doom. If you want to be less fearful, stop watching the news. Fear is a disease. The more you allow it to penetrate your mind, the more it spreads to other parts of your life. Threats, real and perceived. We know that our fears are mostly irrational, but we have a terrific imagination. Our imagination enables us to paint a picture of something so horrific that it almost can't be spoken about. Some 20 million Americans are reported to have aviophobia, an extreme fear of flying. According to the National Safety Council, Americans have a 1 in 114 chance of dying in a car crash compared to nearly a 1 in 10,000 chance of dying in an aviation accident. These include small planes, private jets, and all the other high-risk forms of flying. That means you're about 88 times more likely to get killed on the drive to the airport than on the flight. But the mental image of a plane crash is much more vivid, and everyone can imagine the horror that must take place before the crashing. Our mind has a great ability to dream up a graphic horror movie of what might happen, even though we know it's unlikely. Now imagine going into combat knowing the threat is very real. It is tangible. The strategies I discuss in this book work no matter what the fear is, real or perceived. The fact that you fear something is evidence that it isn't happening. Our minds put perceived threats into context. The amygdala, that reptile part of the brain I mentioned earlier, processes emotions, especially fear. The amygdala speaks to the hippocampus, which speaks to the prefrontal cortex. The hippocampus deals with emotions and long-term memories, while the prefrontal cortex is the executive part of our brain and the newest addition in our evolutionary process. This part gives us the ability to be creative and to control our lives. I will focus on these three areas of the brain when speaking about fear. Imagine seeing a hungry lion 20 feet away, staring at you. Obviously, that would wake up the reptile part of your brain and put you in survival mode. But imagine seeing that lion through the window of a safari vehicle or in a zoo. The hippocampus and the prefrontal cortex put the threat into context and change our emotional and physical responses. Now imagine being on foot in the Sahara and seeing that hungry lion. But this time you have a high-powered rifle. Even though you would still have fear, being armed gives you a different perspective and puts the situation in a different context. To be clear, I'm not saying we should shoot lions.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?